July 18, 1948. Tempelhof Airport, West Berlin. 10-year-old Lucas stands by the barbed wire fence, his shoes held together with twine. The air smells of aviation fuel and ruin. Above him, the sky roars. C-54 Skymasters are landing every 3 minutes. Lucas flinches. 2 years ago, that sound meant death. It meant running to the cellar, covering his ears, praying the roof wouldn't collapse. Now the Americans are back, but they aren't dropping bombs. They are dropping flour, coal, dried milk. Stalin has blockaded the city. Without these planes, 2 million Berliners starve. But Lucas doesn't trust them. His father died fighting Americans in Italy. His school books used to say Americans were gangsters, monsters. He watches a pilot walking along the fence line. A tall man, chewing something, uniform crisp. The pilot stops. He sees the group of ragged German children. Lucas steps back. He expects an insult, a kick, or maybe the pilot will just ignore them, like they are stray dogs. Instead, the pilot reaches into his pocket. He pulls out 2 sticks of Wrigley's Doublemint gum. He breaks them in half and passes them through the wire. Lucas gets a piece. He unwraps the foil. The smell hits him first. Peppermint. Sweet, sharp, clean. A smell from a world without dust and rubble. He puts it in his mouth. The sugar makes him dizzy. He hasn't had sweets in 3 years. The pilot speaks broken German. "I have to go, but I'll come back." Lucas asks, "How will we know which plane is yours?" The pilot smiles. "I'll wiggle my wings." Watch the wings. That night, Lucas couldn't sleep. Not because of hunger, but because of the gum. He had kept the wrapper. He smelled it again and again. Why? Why would a conqueror share his rations with the children of the enemy? The next day, the roar returns. A C-54 approaches the runway. Suddenly, the giant metal bird dips its wings, left, then right. A wiggle. 3 small white bundles drop from the flare chute. They aren't bombs. They are handkerchiefs tied into parachutes. Attached to them? Hershey bars. Lucas chases them down with the other boys. He grabs a chocolate bar. It's melted, smashed, but to him, it's gold. This was Lieutenant Gale Halverson. His superiors didn't know he was doing it. In fact, he could have been court-martialed. He was using military equipment to drop unauthorized cargo. But when the commanding officer, General Tunner, saw a photo in the newspaper of German kids catching chocolate, he didn't punish Halverson. He expanded the operation. Operation Little Vittles was born. Soon, pilots across the squadron were pooling their rations. Secretaries in America were tying parachutes. It wasn't about nutrition. You can't feed a city on chocolate. It was about something else. Weeks later, a letter arrived at the base addressed to the uncle who wiggles his wings. It was from a girl named Mercedes. She wrote, "The chickens are scared of the planes, but I am not. Please drop candy near the White House with the red roof." The cynical view is that this was propaganda, a way to win hearts and minds against the Soviets. And sure, it worked. But you can't fake the look in a pilot's eyes when he ties his own handkerchief to a chocolate bar. Winter came. The blockade was brutal. No electricity, freezing apartments. But every day, the wiggling wings appeared. The raisin bombers, the Germans called them. One afternoon, Lucas's mother found his stash of chocolate wrappers. She began to cry. Lucas thought she was angry. "Mama, it's okay. I shared them," he said. She shook her head. "I'm not crying because of the chocolate, Lucas. I'm crying because they haven't forgotten us." That was the weapon, not the food, the acknowledgement. The blockade ended in May 1949. The Americans had flown 278,000 flights. They had delivered 2.3 million tons of supplies. But for a generation of German children, the war didn't end with a treaty. It ended with a stick of gum. Years later, an older Lucas stood in a free Berlin. His son asked him about the airlift. Did the Americans save us because they wanted to beat the Russians? Lucas thought about the peppermint. Governments do things for power, he said. But people? People do things because they are human. He took a stick of gum from his pocket and handed it to his son. Propaganda tells you who to hate. Experience tells you who to trust. The man who bombed my city was the same man who fed me. That is the hardest lesson to learn. Lucas looked up at the sky, clear and quiet. When you treat a man like a beast, he becomes one. When you treat him like a child who likes chocolate, you remind him that he is human. And that, Lucas smiled, is how you actually win a war. The pilot didn't just drop calories, he dropped a lifeline to the future. He proved that the sky didn't only have to bring death. It could bring sweetness, and sometimes a single piece of chocolate can weigh more than 1,000 bombs.